Welcome to the 2026 Dialogue, a masterclass series by the HR Association of India. I am Neha Jugnani, and today we are discussing a topic that has become critical for leaders navigating today's rapidly evolving business landscape. In a world shaped by disruption, technology, changing workforce expectation, and constant transformation, leadership is no longer defined by position alone. It is defined by adaptability, continuous learning, and the ability to reinvent oneself. Our theme for this session today is the future of leadership: adaptability, learning, and continuous reinvention. To explore this, we are joined by Vinod Khot. Vinod is a seasoned business leader with over 2 decades of experience across corporate banking, trade finance, data analytics, and digital transformation. He has led leadership roles at organizations including Yes Bank, HSBC, and ICICI Bank, driving business growth and innovation. Today, he's an independent director, executive coach, and managing director at Reset Learning LLP, the Dale Carnegie Training franchise for Pune and the rest of Maharashtra. He focuses on leadership and soft skills development. Known for his growth mindset and passion for continuous learning, Vinod strongly believes in building resilient, future ready leaders and organizations. Vinod, thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure having you.
Uh, Thank you, Neha, for the amazing introduction. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be here. And thank you, HRAI, also for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir. Our pleasure. And looking forward to this exciting masterclass. So, to begin with, Vinod, my first question for you is: leadership today is constantly evolving. What does adaptability truly mean for leaders in a fast changing business environment?
That's a great question, Neha. They say, and you would have heard this earlier also, change is the only permanent thing in life, right? And I absolutely believe that. And it is very, very true in today's day and age, right? Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, the rate of change has even increased rapidly. If you see from where it was 25, 30 years ago, the rate of change was very, very slow and steady. But now it's very, very disruptive in nature.
Sure.
So yes, it is constantly evolving. It is evolving faster. So one has to adapt. Now, let's take some examples. You would have heard of companies like Nokia, Xerox, or even when I was young, we used to use Orkut versus Facebook. When we
Yes.
had the VCR, the DVDs, all of them are just names now. And a lot of the younger generation don't even know of them,
Right.
right? They didn't do anything wrong. The only thing they didn't do was they didn't adapt.
Right.
So today, any leader, any business, any person needs to adapt. Now, for me, adaptability has four elements to it. One is keeping up with the pace of change. Now, you need to be aware about what is happening in your environment, right? If you are there in a manufacturing business or pharma business or any other business, you need to be aware as to what is happening in that business, what are the best practices that are there, what is the disruption happening in that business.
Right.
Not only should you be an expert or know what is happening in your own field, but you should also know the allied fields or other fields. For
Right.
example, if I am from a pharma industry, I should also know what's happening in the engineering, manufacturing, or other industries. And from there, I can use the best practices out from there,
Right.
right? So that is how you should be able to adapt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Second thing is, I have to be comfortable as a leader. One has to be very, very comfortable with ambiguity. Earlier, there was a lot of clarity. Each leader was clear. They had a 5-year plan, 10-year plan. They knew what they wanted to do. Uh, you know, it was very, very crystal, and they had explained to the teams also.
Right.
But now you would rarely see people having a 5-year plan also, or organizations also, because it's changing rapidly. So
Yeah.
that's why, and it's not clear. You have already had so many disruptions in the last 10 years itself. You had a COVID disruption. Then recently you have the 2, 3 wars which have happened and which are also continuing. So unless you're adaptive and comfortable with ambiguity, you will not be able to survive or grow.
Sure.
So that's why you have to be friends with adaptability. Now, COVID is a very good example. COVID got us to rethink the way we work. Earlier, work from home was never an option. Today, and I was working in Just Bank that time, uh, we immediately transitioned to work from home. All our laptops, we were given the laptops, we work from home, VPN connections were there, all transactions, even the operations team could work from home. And that is the beauty of, you know, evolving and adapting.
Right.
Second example you can talk about is UPI. Today, you use the Google Pays, Paytms, Phone Pays of the world, where you are able to transfer money from one person to another in seconds. Earlier, if you go back 15, 20 years, one had to issue a check. The check used to go to that different location. The other bank is to verify the check has been issued by them, and then it's clear. It probably used to take 7, 10 days just to clear a check. What happens in the instant and is now acceptable as you know something which is standard earlier was not the case. So that's how change happens. The third thing I would say is humility. When I say humility, I mean humility to unlearn what you've learned already, because it may no longer be relevant. Relearn the new stuff. For example, AI ML is something new. A lot of us are not aware of it. Have we taken the trouble and the time to learn? Third thing and this is something which is close to my heart, is reverse mentoring. A lot of times we are scared, we as leaders, as senior people are very, very scared of approaching younger people and learning from them. Quite often, a person in my own team would know much more about a particular topic than I would. And if I'm not open to learn from him, then it is going to be my demise and it's going to impact the company or the department. Right. So that is the one more thing. The
Sure.
fourth thing I would also add to this is a solution mindset. When I was started my banking career, my designation was that of a solution manager. Now that's very interesting, and that is something which stayed with me all throughout my life. The role of a solution manager was to solve the problems of any current account customer, irrespective of whatever he did. So if he came for a check or trade in supply chain, or he came for cash management, or he came for import export, whatever he came for, you had to provide a solution to that. And that solution mindset has remained with me forever. So these are four things that I would recommend
Sure.
for one people to be truly adaptable.
Sure, absolutely. Beautifully put, Vinod. Just to summarize for audience's benefit, number one point for adaptability is keeping up with the pace. Second was getting comfortable with ambiguity. Third is humility to unlearn. And last but not the least, to have that solution mindset. So thank you so much for beautifully putting it together. My next question, Vinod, is with your experience in coaching leaders, how can individuals build a habit of continuous learning without feeling overwhelmed?
That's another good question, Neha. See, what happens is as you grow up the hierarchy, uh, you know, things get lonely at the top. Now, how do you learn in that case? One of the ways of learning is basically you take help. For example, when my child wanted to learn cricket, I put him in a coaching academy. When my child was weak in math, I got him a math tutor, right? So if as leaders we don't know about a topic, we can always invite experts, either as part of a and be part of a longer team, or as individual coaches and learn from them. That's
Right.
one of the things that can be done. Now, what also happens is I am also an ultra marathoner. I run a lot. And what it's taught me is that in life, it's not about running fast. It's about being consistent, right? So, like that, if you apply that, the same thing to coaching and training or learning, one has to be consistent in their approach.
Right.
Now, how does a CXO or a leader or anybody at any level learn? And there are multiple ways of learning today. You have a lot of podcasts which are there. You have a lot of uh, books which are there. You have a lot of Instagram or YouTubes which are there. You have a lot of newspaper clippings which come in. You have a lot of online learning sites. And you have companies like Dale Carnegie also which are there into learning and development, which will help you. Now, it's not the lack of options. It's actually too much data available and too much learning options available. Now, it is up to you to pick and choose what is right for you. That's number one. Number two is you have to be consistent with the learning also. You cannot say that I will once a month, I will spend 3 days entirely learning and that's enough for me for the entire year. That may not work because you have to adapt. Things are changing, new things will come in, which you may not know about. So, therefore, learning has to be consistent. So, these
Right.
are some of the things that need to be done. Apart from that, a lot of times I've seen that as leaders or at individuals also, we give the control of our careers or learning in different people's hand. अरे company करेगा तो we will do the learning. Why should you leave it to your company, right? Company, if the company does not get you to do a AIML course, you will not do AIML. But the fact also is that if you don't today do a AML course from a perspective of understanding it at least and using it as a aid, then 3 months, 6 months down the line, you may find yourself redundant. And therefore, I always say you should be the captain of your own ship, whether it's on learning, whether it's on different aspects. You decide what you want to do. If you think that topic is relevant for you, you should pick it up yourself.
Sure.
And you should invest your own time, effort, and money in doing that course. So that is also something very, very important.
Sure.
And the classic case or story of tortoise and the hare is also equally important. And like I said, the tortoise will beat the hare because tortoise is consistent, right?
Sure.
The hare sleeps in between and therefore he gets lost. It's also like a gym membership. You pay for 12 months and you end up going only for the first week because you're so excited. Chalo, is saal karenge apan, we'll lose weight, we'll build strength. But
Absolutely.
the people, the 5-10% who actually do it consistently throughout the year are the ones who actually benefit from the whole thing. Right.
Sure.
So that is what my experience says, or I would love to say. Plus, too much information is there to choose what you want to do or how you want to do it. There
Sure.
can be different ways. You can read books. Sometimes you can learn from people's experience, whether they're mentors, colleagues, juniors. We spoke of reverse mentoring also. You can learn from other people's experiences. You can learn from other industries. So learning is everywhere. You just need to look for it.
Sure. Sure. So to summarize, in order to keep the learning consistent, there is inviting experts. When you need some practice, when you want to learn, it is always a great option to take help. Second is consistency, very, very important. And last but not the least, I think taking your growth and journey in your own hands, without waiting for the opportunity to present itself. You should take initiatives and effort in order to take part in the learning journey, especially in the world where things are rapidly changing and things are getting outdated just in a year. I mean, if something is working today, maybe in the next 2 years it will become obsolete. So it's very, very important from the learning perspective, and I think as well as to be relevant when so much of around us is changing. So thank you so much for that. My next question, Vinod, is what are the biggest mindset shifts leaders need to make to stay relevant in the age of constant disruption?
Right. That's another interesting question. And I think part of it we've covered in the earlier questions also. A lot of times leaders have this mindset of seniors. I won't only call leaders, but people have this mindset that I know everything.
Right.
The moment you have that attitude or that mindset that I know everything, that is your start of your fall, right? You will only grow if you learn. And to learn, you need to realize that you don't know everything. There are a lot of blind spots which are there, right? The typical Johari window that you would have heard about, that
Yeah.
is very, very real today. We all have our blind spots. We just need to be open to learning what the blind spots are. And only people who can point them out to us are other people around us.
Sure.
They can be seniors, juniors, peers, whoever it is. It can also be wife, husband, whatever. So we need to be open to feedback from different people, right?
Yeah.
Third, the second point I would say is the learning mindset, right? If you don't know something, you need to be able to ask people or join courses or do something about what you don't know about, right? A lot of times I was actually at a panel discussion and somebody gave a very good example that a lot of times we say, wow, we see a good car, we say, wow, see a good product, we said, wow. But we should always follow up that question with a how, which basically means what is the reason behind the wow. And once you are curious about what technology has gone behind that making that car or that product, that is when you will start learning. So
Right.
that learning or that one sentence has stayed with me also now. And every time there's a wow moment, I said, how has he been able to do that? How has she been able to do that? That is one of the learning mindset that one needs to have. Right. Second thing I would say is as a leader, one needs to stop managing people and start enabling people. And that I mean that nobody today, no employer wants a supervisor. What they want actually is someone who can coach them, mentor them, and who can show them the way.
Right.
Right. I, as a leader, and this way possibly, I find a great joy or no bigger joy than coaching and mentoring my own team members because there's so much you also learn and discover on the way when you're coaching and mentoring a person. Right. So that is one more thing that I would like to talk about.
Sure.
The third thing I would like to talk about is a lot of people think perfection is important. I will only launch this product if it's perfect. I will only do this once it becomes perfect. Or they wait for a perfect timing or perfect place. Today, anybody who waits for a perfect place, perfect timing, and all is not likely to survive. There's a design thinking principle which is there, and you will see a lot of startups using this versus established companies been there for hundreds of years, right? It is basically to experiment, to fail fast, to learn faster from your mistakes that you made, to keep iterating, and you come out with a minimum viable plan, and then you launch, right? So move away from perfection, move towards agility. You need to be agile in today's. You should take decision. So that is how you can change the mindset.
Sure. Sure. Thank you so much, Vinod. So, some of the biggest mindset shifts are from I know everything to, being somebody who's open to feedback, open to learning, from managing people to enabling people. I really liked the point where you said from wow to how. So, the journey, the question, there was no question when you're complimenting something, but that mindset from wow to how, it actually shows that how curiosity can also help you innovate, help you, get along with the pace that things are going. So staying curious is another thing. Then perfection was used to be something very, very important, but it's important to not look at perfection, but moving towards agility, where you use design thinking, where you learn how to fail fast and then not wait for the perfect moment. So thank you so much for putting it together. My next question, Vinod, is how can organizations create a culture where reinvention is encouraged, not resisted?
Right? All organization today need to have a culture where there needs to be certain amount of openness which is there today. I spoke earlier also about reverse mentoring. As people, as leaders, whether you have 1 year experience or you have one person reporting to you, two people, 2,000 people, or 2 lakh people reporting to you, one should always be open to new ideas from your team, right? And for people to give you new ideas, you need to come as a leader who is open to ideas.
Right.
It should not be, "Ki, I know everything. Who are you to tell me?" Moment one has that attitude, even if if you're sitting with your own team and moment you said, "Okay, what your idea? अरे ये तो बेकार idea है. अरे ये तो होगा ही नहीं." Unless and until you listen to the idea, you evaluate it, check what the benefits are there, it has merit or no. If it does not have merit, you can obviously politely tell the person, ki, "Yes, this is what is there, but these are the points that we need to consider, and it may not work, or it may not work for so and so reasons." Once you explain it properly to the person will also understand that, yes, I had this idea. I was allowed to present the idea. It did not work. On the other hand, if somebody else has an idea and it's actually a idea that one can implement, then it's an amazing thing for the organization, the department, and the person.
Right.
So that is very important. And culture should be there not only at the top. Culture starts from the top, but culture, we are part of the culture. You and I are part of the culture. We make the culture together, right? So culture and reinvention should be there at all the levels, right? A lot of time it's only lip work that people say, okay, we are okay to reinvent. We are, we have open culture and we are open to feedback. Well, actually, people are not open to feedback. And moment you give feedback, they are very vindictive to you. And moment that happens, then you start losing people left, right, and center, and there's a lot of attrition that happens, and then you wonder why the company is not innovating or coming out with new products, right? So that is very important. Now, for how do we change the culture? The thing that is, you should encourage people to ideate and come open up with their ideas, discuss the ideas in the meetings that are there. Often, we should not punish the mistakes. There should always be we call it a reasonable allowable margin for error. RAME, we call it reasonable allowable margin for error, which basically means is yes, people should be allowed to make mistakes as long there are reasonably, if you make a huge mistake where there's huge loss to company, obviously there would be repercussions. Or if you repeat the same mistake time and again, there would be repercussions. But it is important for people to allow people to fail, allow people to experiment, allow people to make mistakes.
Sure.
And I know a lot of companies who actually have budgets for experimentation, right? Fortunately or unfortunately, India is one place where we have one of the lowest spend on R&D. And if we change that, you will see that we are a race, or Indians are very, very brilliant in what they do, their thinking and everything else. But moment we are able to ideate and spend time, effort, and money on R&D, we will come out with world-class innovations. That is something I believe. Today, a lot of innovations are also coming, or patents are being filed by Indians who are working for MNC companies. Right? So that is also there. Why MNC companies? Because MNC companies have a culture where they encourage innovation. They encourage people to come out with their own ideas, which I have not seen a lot of Indian companies do. And that I've seen there's a shift from Indian companies as well, where they're investing in learning and development or research and development and getting people to start experimenting, allowing people to fail, having a separate budget towards that. All these small, small things which are there. But psychological safety is a very, very critical and important part. Uh, Leaders across level should be trained in psychological safety, where they should allow their team members to voice their concern. And it can be on any topic, right? They should have permission to experiment. They should have a specific budget to experiment, right? It's always said, somebody says that ideas are no one's monopoly. At any given point of time, 10 people have the same idea, but only few of them or one of them will execute the idea or work on the idea.
Right.
Now if that one person is part of your team and you're allowing him to implement the idea, then he gets the credit, you get the credit, and even the company gets the credit for doing what it does, right? A lot of times, again, we are talking about AI. A lot of times people say, I don't understand AI, which is good. You acknowledge they don't understand what is there in AI, but what have you done about it? Have you enrolled yourself in a course to learn about AI? Have you spoken to an industry expert and said, okay, I don't know about this. I want you to explain to me about this so that I can have a good idea about how AI works and how I can apply it in my sphere of work or area of work, right? And that is also very, very important. Today, when you talk about culture and reinvention, we need to ask people, seek help. And you will understand and see that there are a lot of people who are willing to help you if you ask them. If you don't ask them, nothing will happen. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. So at the most, what will a person say? They will say, no, I will not help you. Then you go on to the next person and ask the next person. So the culture of a company is very, very important, and culture is built by you and I. We need to be able to let people experiment. We need to be able to let people fail. We need to be able to let people experiment with whatever they want, in whatever shape and form they want, right? So that is very, very important from a culture and reinvention perspective.
Sure, thank you so much. To summarize, giving people the opportunity to ideate, to present their ideas, allowing them to fail and not punishing their mistakes is another factor which encourages people to come back and brainstorm even further. Then there is psychological safety, which plays an important role. When people have that sense of belonging, when they feel that they are valued, I think that's when they actually thrive. Last but not the least, seeking help is very, very important. And a culture where you can ask for help freely without any hesitation, it speaks a lot about it. So, thank you so much. This brings us to the last question, Vinod, which is if you had to give one clear message to leaders, what should they start doing today to, future proof themselves?
Right. So, before we talk about going into what leaders can do to future-proof themselves, one thing is, when you talk about leaders, who are leaders? Leaders are anybody at any across all the levels. Leaders are not only CXO and CEOs, right? That is very, very important definition that we need to get clear about. Even a person handling one member team or two member team is a leader, right? And he has to lead his team. That is also very, very important. So once we are clear about that, the leaders are there at different level. It is not a manager or a senior manager. You are a leader at the end of the day. You will lead your team, manage your team, get the output from them, and work towards the betterment of the organization. Right. Now, the clear message for leaders, I would say, is stay curious, stay uncomfortable, be okay with ambiguity, and we spoke about this also. If if growth stops, or if you stop growing, or if you stop any of these things, right? If you stop staying curious, stop being uncomfortable, stop being unambiguous, then the growth will stop. And moment you do that, your growth will stop and you will get stagnate or get replaced. Right? So very in today's day and age where everything is very, very moving very, very fast, one needs to be curious, uncomfortable, and unambiguous.
Sure.
Other things I would say is we dwell too much on the past. Right? As a leader, I have 25 years of experience. Yes, you have experience, but is that experience relevant now? Right? That is very important. Instead of looking towards the past, can we look toward the future? And can we prepare toward the future? That is another thing that we should be doing.
Sure.
Whenever I have my reviews with my team, I always say that yes, your performance, past is performance is important, and I know what how you perform. Those numbers are already there for everybody to see. But how do you plan to achieve the target for next year or next 5 years? That is very, very important. So
Sure.
one needs to look and plan towards the future, right? So that is very important. Now, other things I would add to is that you have to read outside your industry. A lot of times we know, okay, I am an industry expert. I know everything about banking and finance. I know everything about L&D and all. But there are a lot of innovations that will come across in other industries where they've been doing something for years and you've not applied that in your own industry. And that's why if you are able to get the best practice from different industries by reading or by inviting experts from different industries for, say, a guest lecture or whatever it is, you will learn a lot from different industries as well. So that is something that is there. We spoke about wow behind the how. That is another important learning for me also last year, right? Third thing is learn something new. It can be, and you can have a cadence for learning something new, monthly, quarterly, yearly, whatever it is. But learn something new, do something new every year, right? Now, in the end, one clear message is that it is not the most qualified who will grow. It is the most adaptable who will grow, right? I keep telling people, and I've seen this myself, that your technical skills are only will take you only so much. In the first couple of years, your technical skills are very, very important, and they'll take you to a certain level. But to go to a next level or to go to a CEO or CXO level, you will need to have people skills. So invest in people skills, and those are also very, very important. So these are my clear message, if you would say that, yeah.
Sure, absolutely. So many takeaways, Vinod, right from staying curious, staying uncomfortable, and open to ambiguity. It's very, very important. And as you rightly said, your growth will stop if you stop being that. Dwelling in the past is again something that leaders should avoid, and looking at the future will make leaders much more relevant. Reading outside of your industry is another important factor. Learning something new, and last but not the least, investing in people. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts today. This brings us to the end of the masterclass. And it was my pleasure to host you, Vinod. And this conversation actually has reinforced an important truth, which is that leadership is no longer just about having all the answers. It is about staying adaptable, being open to learning, and continuously evolving with the changing times. So thank you so much for sharing your insights today.
Thank you, Neha. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.